have a joke so silly and short that everybody wouldn't be able to remember this one. But I got kind of a kick out of it. I like a silly joke, don't you?
Yeah.
Just almost the sillier the better. This one is about a grasshopper. A grasshopper walks into a bar, and it's right up to the bar, and the bartender says, "Hey, we have a drink named after you." And the grasshopper looks puzzled and says, "You have a drink named Steve?" I like that one. He was an ordinary grasshopper. He had an identity. He was unique. He was authentic. And that, in a way, bleeds in a little bit to what I wanted to share some ideas with you about this morning. I took the title of An Essential Life, getting at the essence of something. For some reason, that idea has been swirling around me a lot this summer, the essence of things. It's this is a good time in the year. This is the time to experience the fullness of summer, a time of harvest and kind of the fullness of life all around us. But sometimes, our busy distractedness and habits and routines in someone keep us from really experiencing the essence of things. We're spread too thin, too distracted to do so. So I've been thinking a lot about that, getting at the essence of things, of life, of ourselves. Essence means the intrinsic nature or indispensable quality of something. The intrinsic nature, it's really the heart of something, the essence. We have been exploring a little bit with essential oils lately, as I know some of you do, which are kind of fascinating, and they really do have different kinds of healing properties. It's the essence out of plants and flowers and trees. Getting down to that essential oil out of them that has healing properties. Getting rid of the impurities, the excess, getting down to the essence of something brings out its wholeness. It's very healing. It's empowering. And then we think about, and I think they make essential oils through some kind of a distillation process to get rid of the impurities and get it down to that pure essence. Maybe start thinking about, is there something comparable we do in our lives, to build an essential self, an essential life, and what's involved in that process? There's some similarities there. How do we build an essential life? What kind of practices do we use? I think there are some basics that we come back to again and again. And we certainly talk about them a good deal on Sundays. These are the three big ones I came up with for cultivating and living an essential life, being our essential selves and having an essential life. First one is presence. Presence, being present. I thought it was kind of an interesting thing as I was learning about a certain kind of essential oils that one of the companies that manufactures that I was looking at, one of their big claims to the purity of their product and the reason why its quality was so good was because it came direct from source, from where it's grown, from right there. It's not grown in a lab or manufactured or sent all over the place. It comes from right there, right here, right now, from source, at the point of origin, and all these different kinds of oils from different kinds of flowers and trees and plants and leaves come from lots of different countries because these things grow best there. If you're getting vanilla, oil of vanilla, it might be from Madagascar. If it's frankincense, it might be from the boswellia trees of Somalia. It could be from all kinds of places. That's where it grows, right there. That's source. We learn a similar lesson from beekeepers, I think, and from honey. I was interested to learn some years ago that honey all honey is not the same. And the best honey is from right here. Right here, our local honey is the best honey for us. This is source for us. It has the healing properties we need. It has the allergen protection. It has the immune system bolstering support because it's from this area, from this vegetation, the bees right from this area, drawing from plants in this area. Right here and now is the place to begin. I think it's similarly true And all our great spiritual way showers have taught this truth. It's here. Right here and now is where we start to build an essential life, to become fully ourselves. We start with where we are plugged into source. And that means we have to kind of override our human tendency sometime to think ourselves elsewhere. If I was only elsewhere, if I only had other things or other people or lived somewhere else or just had more money or just had this or that, or we're thinking in the past sometimes, or if I hadn't done these things or those things hadn't happened to me, or we're out in the future instead of here, now. We put off our happiness sometimes. We're really thinking ahead, like, well, I'll be happier when I get a different job, or when I retire, or when my kids are out of the house, or whatever it might be. We think out ahead that we'll have what we need more then. Our lives will become more essential at that point. But it's always here where it starts. It's a wonderful classic from the early 70s, I think, by Baba Ram Das, his book, Be Here Now. It's such a basic principle. Start right here. Be here now. This is where we plug into source. This is where the presence of God is, right here, right now. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is spread across the earth and people do not see it. He said the Father and I are one. The kingdom of God is within us, right here and now. So I think creating a rich, essential life that feels authentic. This is who we are, how we're meant to live. This is the kind of life we're meant to live. It starts with being plugged into source right here, right now, being present. So presence is the first one I thought of in building an essential life. Second one is solitude, times of solitude. I think we must have them. Times of solitude in our days, in our weeks, they must be a part of our lives. And they can be hard to find, those moments of quiet, can't they? No matter who we are or where we live. It's a time of many distractions, many distractions. But times of solitude are so important to help us get clear on what is essential to our lives and what is not. What do you have to be fully yourself and to live a meaningful life? What must you have? What is secondary to that? What blocks it? What is in the way of you living your true, authentic life as fully as possible? Times of solitude help us get clear on that. And then we can make wise choices. Jesus was always teaching this. He was always modeling it, going off on mountaintops or into gardens to pray, or going out on a boat to give himself some space and some solitude from the crowds. Times of solitude that he would seize in the midst of all the people and all the demands, and then he would return. It's like there's a rhythm to it as you look through the Gospels, between times of prayer and solitude, and then followed by times of public healing and service and teaching, and then times of solitude. He modeled that, and he taught it. He was always telling the disciples to take time apart, come apart for a while. Solitude nourished him, and he wanted it to nourish his disciples. It nourished and empowered him and enabled him to do that healing teaching work. He was able to come and teach the multitudes, giving himself that time plugged into source in solitude. I think it's critical to an essential life. One of my favorite writers when I was an English major years ago in college was Henry David Thoreau. Any of you read Thoreau? Walden. He was the expert on solitude. He was the expert on it. He was 28 years old when he, in 1845, when he decided, he was always a lover of nature, and he decided to go apart, like Jesus told the disciples, to take time apart. And he borrowed an axe from a friend, and he cut enough white pine for a small cabin on the shores of Walden Pond, and he built a little cabin there and lived there alone for 2 years. And it became the wellspring of his life, like the time he spent there, the way he plugged himself in in nature, into the presence of God there, the wisdom that came to him, the guidance, the clarity of what was his to do, of who he was, what his life was to be about. As a nature lover, as a writer, it all sprang from that time he spent there. And those of you who read Walden, you might remember some of the chapters are about planting beans, and how many beans, and what the crop was like, and the seasons, and how the seasons were flowing, and how the pond looked in all kinds of weather, and the deep nourishment of living in the present, here now, in solitude, in touch with God. Everything flowed from that. He was very clear on what he was doing. When it came down to writing the book, Walden, he said early in the book, I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. There's a lot of power in that statement, isn't there? I don't want to run distractedly through my life, checking things off my to-do list, and get down to the end and think, wow, I wish I had lived more, instead of been so busy or distracted. Get down to the essential facts of life, he said. By the end of that period, he had learned who he was, how he was meant to live, what was true and important, and what was not. And in the book he wrote about that experience, he nourished thousands of others about how to live a meaningful life, and how solitude is an important part of that, and how sifting through our lives for what's essential and what's not is a part of that. His big line in Walden, the one that echoes still in my mind down through the years, is simplify, simplify. Our lives are frittered away by details. Can you imagine what Henry David Thoreau would think of our lives now, with all our phones and our distractions and our tablets and our computers and our clogged calendars and clogged homes? Simplify, simplify. Bolstered by times of solitude, we can make wise choices about what's ours to do and what's not, about what's dross in our lives, what's the excess, the impurities, the unnecessary, and what's essential. What's essential. So presence, solitude, and here's the third big one, I think, using the word elimination for it. It's one of the 12 powers, according to Charles Fillmore, one of our spiritual faculties that's very important, the faculty of elimination. After our times of solitude and reflecting on what are the details that are frittering away our lives, what is non-essential, what do we need to clear, we can make better decisions about what needs to be eliminated, what needs to be let go of, omitted, ejected. I find it interesting, that essential oil process of distillation. It's a process of getting rid of the impurities, eliminating the impurities. And the word itself, distill, the basic meaning of the root of that word is drip or trickle. Drip or trickle, that's how it gets down to the essential oil. It's eliminating the impurities to get to an essential oil. It's kind of a similar process in life, I think. It's kind of a drip by drip process. It's a slow process of eliminating the impurities. It's not a whoosh kind of thing. Choose a path or make a decision and we're there in this essential life and essential self. No, it's a more gradual drip by drip process than that. And it's all kinds of elimination, outward elimination. To me, it makes me think of eliminating the impurities, the unnecessary, the blocks, that are really blocking our experience of an essential life, an essential day, a meaningful and rich experience of life. What things are in the way? What things block your experience of life in its essence? My latest elimination is social media. That's something to reflect on nowadays for many of us. Is this nourishing me? Is this nourishing an essential life for me? The time I spend on Facebook or what are so many other ones now. I hear new words every day for some new media app I've not heard of before. how much of that is enriching? How much of that helps me have an essential life and be my essential self? And how much of it is dross, distraction from being in the moment, distraction from feeling that connection? You know, some of the people that we've brought in for In Spirit Ministries, our music ministry, have been wonderful models and mentors for me about how we build this life in terms of you know, the elimination of things that aren't who we are, and to become more, you know, make choices that are more in keeping with who we are and who we're becoming. I was thinking particularly, there's been a number of musicians like this. I was thinking particularly of Karen Drucker, who we were able to bring in 3 or 4 times. I think she visited us here. She's from California. How many of you are familiar with Karen Drucker's music? Most of you are. Okay, you don't need a lot of descriptions. Very empowering music, inspiring music, a lot of chants that are very easy to sing along with. But that wasn't who she, and now she tours quite widely and she's pretty well known and with lots and lots of CDs and so on. But she started out, she was kind of, you know, getting her feet under her as a singer and, you know, tentatively doing some singing out, and then she found herself doing a wedding band thing, a wedding singer band. I think, met her husband, I think, in that band, but she was in a wedding band for, I think, some years in the Bay Area. She has a wonderful medley she does, if any of you have ever heard it, little snippets of all the songs she had to do at weddings, and all the song requests. She'll go from Feelings to Big Wheel, Keep On Rolling, you know, the kind of thing you'll hear at a wedding. She'll do a snippet from about 100 songs in one long medley. All the songs that people request at weddings and wedding receptions. And she did that for a number of years until clearly a time came when she couldn't sing Feelings anymore. She just couldn't do it. And she began to realize she needed, the wedding band thing wasn't nourishing her in the same way. It wasn't who she was anymore. It wasn't the essence of who she was anymore. It was something she did, and it was paying bills, and she'd gotten quite good at it. But she needed to make some different choices. So one thing leads to another, to kind of drip by drip, trickle, trickle, trickle. You become conscious of obstructions, you know, things that are kind of in the way of your most authentic self and your most essential life. And you start moving to eliminate some of those impurities. So she stopped doing the wedding singer thing. She got invited to sing at a church. It was a CSL church, and kind of enjoyed that. Different kind of audience at a church or a spiritual center than you'll find at a wedding reception or a bar, certainly. And she started doing a fair amount of that, and then she was invited to be a music director at a CSL church, and she did that for quite a while. And she began to write chants and songs for the spiritual services, which got her songwriting, writing inspiring songs, especially easy to sing songs like chants that people could join in easily. So she did the music director thing for a while, and then that led to, like, then she was feeling like, well, I'm a little stuck here now. I really need to move beyond that. You begin to get a sense of it's obstructing. Where's that come from? It comes from in us. You need to get out a little more. You're becoming more than this. You got to get beyond your limits a little bit more. So she stopped the music director thing and she started touring more and solo performing and touring more, visiting other parts of the country, visiting churches and CSL centers, and soon it was healing symposiums that she was doing, healing chants and music at. And soon she was organizing retreats, workshop experiences, and facilitating workshops, different places around the country, and working sometimes with other noted authors, providing the music for their events. Drip by drip, this essential life forms, very different from the one 20 years ago. It seems to me that's the same process for us all, isn't it? Kind of drip by drip, choice by choice, as we recognize an impurity or an obstruction or something that it's not who we are anymore. It's a little bit in the way of who we're becoming. And so we make some different choices and we start moving away from this and moving more toward this. And where does the intuition, where does the wisdom come from and how to make those changes? It comes from source, right here, right now. It comes from within us. our direct line to divine mind will be guiding us. Will be guiding us. Managing the elimination in our minds is probably the biggest place that has the biggest impact. I think we're doing both all the time. It's kind of how we build an essential life, an essential self. But inward elimination, learning to manage the mind, is probably the most challenging one for us, perhaps, but it has the biggest payoff. Eliminating the impurities that are clogging our minds and skewing our perception of ourselves and others. And they can be habits of mind, habits, the way we see ourselves or others, the way we see life. How can we manage those? How can we release those impurities so that we can experience a more essential life? One of the big ones is meditation. Prayer practice, meditation, these are ways that we manage the confusion in the mind, the thoughts and attitudes that we don't want in there, that are really blocking our experience of a meaningful, essential life. I remember years ago, we had a gentleman, a spiritual teacher named Roy Eugene Davis, visit at Unity East years ago, and he had been a student of Yogananda as a teenage kid. He went out and crossed the country to become a disciple of Yogananda out in California. And he'd never even meditated before, and he showed up at his feet and said, I want to learn. And was, had to sit right down to like a 3 or 4 hour meditation in over his head. But he took to it, and he's, I don't know where he is now, but we had him some years back. And he was such a quiet and deliberate. He just sat in a chair on the platform. I thought, he's just so understated. I hope people will listen carefully, because there's no bells and whistles here. There's no performance. There's no, but you could hear a pin drop. Really, he was so authentic. That's the power of an authentic self, an essential self. Someone in their calling, someone in their own zone, doing what they're meant to be doing. You feel that kind of power, that energy coming from him. And he taught us, it's an introduction to meditation. And it was very simple. There's nothing complicated about the practice. Just breathe in and breathe out and think God. Breathe in and breathe out and think God. And you study the mind that way. And the dross of the mind, the cluttering thoughts, they sort of begin to diminish and go away from neglect, because we're focusing our mind on God, on peace. Such a simple practice, and yet can be so challenging for us. I think our egos draw us into many distractions. We're very busy, we're very important, we're doing many, many things. It is such a simple thing to be able to sit and just breathe in and out and focus our minds and cleanse the impurities away from our minds in that way, and we will feel a greater sense of meaningfulness, of essence, of richness. We have a wonderful meditation class going on right now. Some of you are involved in. Lisa Ferraro is doing a meditation class. We have 3 more sessions. Session coming up this Tuesday, which is, you can still get involved. If you wanted to do that and didn't come to the first, you can still come. But then after the second, it'll be closed for new folks. So it'll be kind of a little farther along with it. But it's a similar thing Lisa is teaching us. It's a God connection. It's a method of God connection, connecting with Source, so you are in deep touch with the source of your good, with the guidance you need to direct your choices on who you are and how you're meant to live, and what's unnecessary, what dross needs to be cleared away. And you can clear away the worry, the anxiety, the habitual thoughts that clutter us, keep us up at night, and distract our days. We can begin to eliminate them by learning to manage our minds a little bit. We can all cultivate an essential life, I think. It's ongoing practice, drip by drip by drip. The opportunities to remember being present with God right now, to take moments of solitude every day, even if it's just moments here and there, to take moments of alone time, to breathe, know your oneness with God, draw from Source, and then to proceed from that, guidance coming to us on making choices on what to let go of and what to hold tight. I release the unnecessary and live an essential life. How about that for an affirmation today? I release the unnecessary and live an essential life. Let's take that into prayer for a moment. Affirm that truth within. Day by day, this is our intention, our affirmation. We are guided by God moment by moment. We take time often, every day, to remember our deep connection with God and to draw from that source, to invite God to guide us, to inform our choices, to reveal to us what's ours to do and what is not, what to hold close to and what to let go of. And as we follow that guidance, we are led toward an ever more meaningful and enriching life. Thank you, God, for your unfailing presence with us now and always. Amen.